Well, hello there, and welcome to the Forager Chick channel. I'm Anne-Marie, the Forager Chick, and today we're going to make something really delicious. It's a little unusual. It's going to be pickled wild mushrooms. How does that sound? So I'll be right back. These are supposed to be shiitake lattes. See, there is no shiitakes on here. We have oyster mushrooms. Oh, who knows? Maybe I made a mistake. Maybe I inoculated them with oysters. But yesterday, these were all just like this big. Just like these little ones. And now look at them. Okay, let's get started with our pickled wild mushrooms. This recipe is in my cookbook, which you can see the recipe or the picture of it right here. Can you see those delicious pickled mushrooms? The recipe is in the Wild Eating with the Forager Chicks cookbook, which you can get on our website, foragerchick.com, if you like, and some of you already do have this. You can use this recipe for other mushrooms as well, for even cultivated oyster mushrooms. Today, I actually have a combination of cultivated and wild mushrooms, and the recipe calls for about 4 ounces of mushrooms. I wound up having about 5 ounces. So I'm going to use what I have here. And if you've never seen an oyster mushroom, this is just one of the varieties that you can see. The little clusters, they have a wonderful smell, kind of a little bit like anise or slight licorice and slight seafood together. And on oyster mushrooms, just so you do know that they have gills on them, true blade gills that run down the stem. Can you see that? Once you see these mushrooms and you find them for the very first time, you won't forget them. They grow year-round. They grow on down trees and they grow on dying trees as well. And they can be the color of this, which is like a white, or, and I already cut these up, I'm sorry, they can be almost like a little bit of a brownish tannish shape, brown gray. So there are different kinds of oysters out there. Cultivated though, you could have the white mushrooms, blue mushrooms, browns, pinks, which are my favorite. But I did have a couple of extras here, so I just wanted to show you. And when I get my mushrooms, and for this recipe, I treat it a little bit differently, but I get them and I make sure that they have no bug holes on the other side and that they are fairly clean and with no critters in them. And then all I do, you know, if they are dirty, I just take my cute little mushroom brush them off. And then this is so easy. This is all you do. There you go. Tear them up into little sections and put them in a bowl. And then when you have the amount that you need, and in this case, I did do about 5 ounces, might even be closer to 5.5. And so I tore all these up. And the first thing we have to do with these is I have to put them in a pot. Dropping them. Put them right here in a pot. And then, I had my pot on just a little bit. We're going to put a little bit of salt over it. We need about a half a teaspoon of salt. Kosher salt is what I usually use. Put about a half. Might do a little more than a half since I had just a wee bit extra in there. And then you're going to cover it with water. Pour in some water. Yes, I had my pot on, which was a little crazy. And you want it to cover. And not quite covered. I think I'm going to go ahead and get a little bit more water. Bring it to a boil. Reduce it down to a simmer and let it simmer for about 10 minutes because all mushrooms need to be cooked. Wild mushrooms, domesticated mushrooms, homegrown mushrooms, you need to cook them because mushrooms contain chitin and chitin is not digested by us. Plus they have a couple other things in there. And this way though, we make sure there's no extra critters, extra protein in there. And so we'll bring to a boil, then we'll reduce it and then we will strain it out and then we'll go on with the rest of our pickling. So while I'm waiting for the mushrooms, I have about 5 minutes, so I'm going to quickly show you the rest of the ingredients up close and personal. So over here we have a garlic clove. Whoops, did you see that go flying? And yeah, don't look at my cutting board. I totally burnt it when taking the pot off there and laying it on here. At least it's a cheap one, so I don't have to worry about it, but still, no fun to have that happen. So we have 1 garlic clove, and you just want to slice it thin. Watch those fingers. Get it nice and thin. 1 clove of garlic. And then we need about 2 tablespoons of onion. So I'm using an onion from one of the local farmers. I didn't have too many onions this year, so I had to purchase some, but it's always nice when you can purchase it from a local farmer rather than the grocery store and you know where it was grown. I'll go ahead and just chop up maybe about half of this. I'll make 2 tablespoons. You can do it in rings, thin strips, which is what I'm doing, however you want, or you can just chop it up finely. There we go. Let's see. I think this looks to be, I think we can use a little bit more onions. What do you think? Let's just do another little hunk of that. There we go. Alright, got our little onion pieces. 1 clove of garlic. We have about 2 tablespoons of onion. And then I have some seeds here. Most of these, all of these actually, are wild seeds. And I need a combination of about 1.5 tablespoons. So I have some fennel, which, okay, technically isn't wild, but mine has been growing for 3 years, so I'm considering it a weed. I planted it once and it keeps coming back. So I put in some fennel, little baby fennel seeds. Then right here, I have a mixture of mugwort and just a wee bit of holy basil. Oh my gosh, mugwort smells amazing. And then right here, these little guys are nettle seeds. And they're not fully seeded yet, but we're going with it. Put those in there. It's nice to use wild seeds. You never know what kind of flavor you're gonna get, but you try to match it up, of course. If you're gonna take your wild seeds, make sure it's something that is edible and tasty. Over here, we have some lamb's quarter seeds. I'm gonna put those in there too. It's out. There we go. Oops. If I don't have enough, I can always fill in with some other kind of seeds like mustard seeds or any other kind of pickling seeds. And then we also are going to need some bay leaves, which I'll go get in a moment. And you don't have to be perfect with this, you know. This is a wild recipe. Make it your own. Doesn't have to be all perfect seeds at the right stage because it'll still add some flavor. There we go. It's telling me we have only 1 minute left, so I'm going to get a couple of more seeds from something else that I have. And I also have here, ooh, where's the rest of them? Oh, they blew away. I have some yarrow. Yarrow adds like a little bit of a peppery taste, so I'm going to go ahead and put those in our jars too. And then here's a surprise for you. Pine needles. We need about 12 or so pine needles. I'm going to put that in there, which will give it a nice piney, lemony flavor. And so I'm about to drain the mushrooms, and then I'll show you what we're going to do with this in just a few moments. Okay, so it's time to strain our mushrooms. And what I did is I let it cool just for a second. And I'm straining it over a bowl because look at all that color in the broth there. Save that and use it in one of your soups. Now remember, it does already have salt in it, so you have to be careful. Don't, taste your soup before you add more salt. And there we go. Look at that. Look at that color. It's nice and golden. So here's our little shroomies. Now you see they shrunk up to practically nothing, but we're making these little cute 4-ounce jars of the pickled mushrooms. So I'm going to let this in a bowl right here. Set those aside for a second. I'm going to move this, put it aside, rinse out this pot, because then we're going to put the rest of our ingredients in it. So I'll be right back. All right. So now we're ready for the really good things that go in there. So we have our 2 tablespoons of onions and our sliced garlic. we'll put that in there. And I have 1 tablespoon of the wild seeds. And then I had a little bit of some pickling seeds. So they have, who knows what's in there. There's mustard. There's some clove. There's some kind of other spices like red peppers, I think, are in there too. I'll put that in. And the recipe calls for 1 bay leaf, but I found these itty bitty tiny bay leaves in my package. So I'm going to put all 4 of the little ones in there. This way each jar gets 1. Put that in there. And then, remember I had the yarrow, so I'm going to go ahead and just strip those. Put that in there too. There we go. Just a little one. Maybe it'll give it a little bit of a peppery bite. Okay, put that in. And remember I told you we need about 12 or so of our pine needles. So don't go crazy, of course, counting them, but you do want them to be separate. There we go. And that's just going to give it a nice little flavor. You're not necessarily going to eat the pine needles with the pickling stuff, just like you don't usually eat the cloves in there. It's just a flavor. And if we go over, I'm pulling off some of those little brown pieces. We don't want those floating around in our pickles. Oh, see, I already lost count. All right, I think I'll do 1 more little bundle. Not like 12 to 15. See that? Beautiful, huh? So then, let me clean up my mess. We need vinegar, of course, because what's pickling without vinegar? Raw apple cider vinegar, which is not going to be raw once we heat it up. And we need 3/4 of a cup of that. Ooh, 3/4. A little drop more. There we go. Another 1/2 teaspoon. It's going to be so good. Already smells good. It's not even heated up yet. Then we need, I'm going to add just another little pinch of red pepper flakes. I know they were in those pickling spices, but just a wee bit more. Why not? Have a little spice. We need some honey. And this is honey from one of our local apiaries. Did I say that right? Apiary. It comes from Bold Springs Apiary. And this is cotton honey. If you've never tried cotton honey, oh my gosh. I just got it today, and it was so good. I've already lost my teaspoon. So I'm going to do 2 1/2 teaspoons. And then it would help if we opened the dang thing. Every time I open one of these. Don't you just love honey? One day we're going to have bees. One day. I keep saying it. So we're going to add a teaspoon. Might taste it afterwards, and we may need a little bit more. But we'll see. Okay. Got that. We got our honey, our seeds, our bay leaf, our garlic, our vinegar, seeds. I think I said that. Onion. I think we have everything. Look at the recipe again, too. Yes, we do. So we're going to bring this one to a low boil and then reduce it to simmer. This is only going to take a few minutes, seriously. And then it's just going to simmer for about 4 or 5 minutes. Then we're going to assemble our jars. I have some jars over on the stove over there warming up in some water and my canning pot, because again, I think I told you I'm going to go ahead and can these. You don't have to, though. Once you make them, you can go ahead and put it in the refrigerator for up to 2 months if you're going to eat it right away. And the reason why I'm doing little jars, like this size jar, 4-ounce jar, is because it's made to be a condiment, not to just like eat right out of there, which you could, of course, but it's made for being a condiment alongside some veggies or some meat or some crackers, like a charcuterie platter. This would be perfect on that. So as soon as this starts simmering, I'll time it, and then we'll see you in a minute. All right, it smells so good in here. Wish you could smell it. It's delicious. Woo, it just got a whiff of it. You got to be careful with vinegar going up your nose and stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a quick taste just to see if we need a little bit more honey, because we might need more honey. Ooh, it's delicious. I may put just a wee bit more honey. And it's probably because I just got this honey and I really like it. Put 1 more teaspoon in. Why not? Have a little extra sweetness. No, I'm not using the same spoon that I tasted it with. Because this is not just for me. I'm sharing it with a class that I'm going to be doing. So, all right. So what we have to do now, that's off. We're going to take our jars out of the water. I have some water that I boiled or simmered. And I got my little hot jars there. And it might make the recipe really says it makes 3 of these size jars. But remember, I put in that little bit of extra mushrooms. So I'm really not sure. And it's okay if we have half a jar because then that's just going to be for me for tasting. So why not, right? Whoops. Yeah. Let's go wash that jar. Sometimes we just got to have some bloopers, right? All right. I'm going to move this aside. This has the lids and the rings in it. And what we're going to do next is we're going to take our mushrooms and I'm going to divide them up amongst the jars. And then we're going to pour our pickling liquid over the top. You know, I can't actually cook without dropping something. Dropping something or letting food fly around the kitchen. Or, you know, that's just what I do. I'm sure you guys do it too. Nobody's a perfect cook, right? It's more fun this way. I mean, gosh, if you didn't see it and if it was all like perfect, like, you know, on TV and stuff, well, that's not real. So this way we show it real like it is. So I hope you guys have been liking my cooking videos with my wild foods. Please leave me a comment because I really love to read the comments. It makes me so happy when somebody comments and I get to respond. And especially just tell me, have you made pickled mushrooms before? If you have, what kind did you make? How did you pickle them? I love to share. This recipe will be, I mean, I know it's in my book and all, but I will share it in the description as well. If you have any favorite mushroom recipes that you pickled, I'll try to see if they're all even. And now we're ready for our liquid. So I think there really is no easy way of doing this. I'm going to have to use this spoon. So I want, you know, you just want like the same things in each one. So I'm going to try to make sure every single one of them gets one of the bay leaves. That's like the main thing because nobody wants like 4 bay leaves in one little jar. There we go. And then I'm just going to make sure a little bit of the onions go in each one. A little bit of the seeds, garlic, you know. Just divide it up as best you can. Get those little pine needles in there too. Let's see, I'm doing all this first before I pour the juice over. Let's see who didn't get enough onions. You look like you don't have enough onions. Do you talk to your food? Talk to my food all the time. I think this one's missing a garlic. Oh. So yeah, it was kind of funny that we even had oyster mushrooms. It's been so dry. I had all this rain and it was so dry. And lo and behold, I go outside, I have shiitakes and oysters, and it was just really nice to see. Oh, I'm going to make sure at least a few of these are completely full. So you want to go up to about a 1/2 inch, which is a little above the rim, the bottom rim. I'm not sure. Oops, that one put a little bit too much. You know, you want to make sure you get it in there right. You don't want to just eyeball it. We're going to measure it in a minute. I might not have enough vinegar. Let me leave that little bit aside for a moment. We're going to use our little handy dandy squisher thing, whatever it's even called, just to make sure all the air is taken out of there. This is the one that's probably going to wind up being mine because there's not enough vinegar in there. So, note to self, yes, 3. No matter what, makes 3. Right, this one might be, that's a 1/2 inch. And you measure it with this little side right here. I'm just going to go ahead. Measure half. Okay, I'm not measuring that one, so that one's not going in there. I'm going to squish it down again. Let me pour the rest of the juice in this one. Ooh, it might make it. All right. Anyway, since this one is not quite as full, this one's just going to get refrigerated. It's going to be mine. All right. You can see those little jars. See how full they are? They come up to right about between here and here is about a ½ inch. You can see. You see that really well? Now we got to wipe it down. It's a main important thing you have to do when you're canning. Everything has to be clean. I wash these jars. I put them in some simmering water just so they're the right temperature before they go in a canning pot. And then use like white vinegar on a paper towel. And you're just going to wipe around the edges. These aren't as hot anymore as they were. Okay. You can already tell this one. This one pine needle is going to be a pain in the booty. Get in there. And even this one, even though it's going in the refrigerator. Okay. Then we take out our lids, which are nice and hot. On top of there, there's an extra one. They stuck together. One on there. Come on, get out of there. Been canning a lot this season. How about you guys? What have you been canning? Have you been canning tomatoes or jams and jellies? I just made some kudzu jelly the other day. Oh, I just hope it sets up good. Lately we've been having issues with it setting up, and I've heard that there's an issue with some of the pectin nowadays. So if anybody has had a problem with Sure-Gel, please let me know in the comments, because this has happened now twice to me with jelly, and I'm not exactly sure what's going on with it. And then I also pickled some pepper jelly, and that set up just fine. So there you go. We're going to take these now, put these in the canning pot for 15 minutes, and then we'll take them out. They'll sit aside, they'll seal, and then they'll be shelf stable for a year, which is great. Now this one, the one that's not going to go in the canning pot, I could just let this cool. It's starting to cool now, but it's still hot on the bottom. I'm going to let this cool, and then I could just put it in the refrigerator, but I do have to use it up within 2 months, so which is not a problem. Look at the size of that jar. So I'm going to go ahead, put these in the canning pot. So I have the canning jars in the pot over there, and they'll be sitting in there for about 15 minutes. You don't need to see that part. I hope you enjoyed watching this episode and cooking with me, making the pickled wild mushrooms. I can't wait to try them. And the best part about this, which I forgot to tell you, is, well, no, it could be the best and the worst. You can't eat them today. You have to wait a couple of days so all the flavors marry and get soaked in those oyster mushrooms really well. And then you're ready to eat them. So remember, if you're just going to make the recipe, you can do that and put it in the fridge. It'll store for 2 months, or you can go ahead and water bath can it, and it'll keep up to a year. And the recipe, again, is in my cookbook, and I'll put the recipe below also in the description. Wild eating with the Forager chicks. So again, if you like this video, go ahead and click like, share it with a friend, leave me a comment. I would love that. And you have a beautiful day today. Bye.